Inside your body, right this very second, there's this incredibly powerful process going on. It's like a sophisticated internal cleanup crew, a recycling program that's constantly tidying up your cells from the inside out. We're talking about something called autophagy. And let me tell you, getting a handle on this might just change, well, everything about how you think about your health.
The word autophagy literally translates to self-eating. I know, that sounds kind of terrifying, right? But it's not like that. Think of it less like self-cannibalism and more like your body's own hyper-efficient quality control system. Your cells are constantly finding old, broken, or junk parts, packaging them up, and then recycling them for raw materials to build new, healthy components. It's the ultimate in biological efficiency.
And look, this isn't just some new age wellness fad we're talking about. The science behind this is so fundamental, so important to how our bodies work, that it won Yoshinori Osumi the Nobel Prize back in 2016. He was the one who really cracked the code on the whole process. So yeah, this is the real deal. We're talking rock solid, Nobel Prize winning biology here.
So that's the big question, right? The multi-million-dollar question. How do we actually get this amazing built-in system to turn on? Well, the answer lies in this really delicate balance, a kind of biological switch that our bodies are fiddling with all the time.
Okay, so let's break this down. The easiest way to think about it is that your cells are basically always in one of two modes. They're either in growth mode or they're in repair mode. Now, the problem for most of us living in the modern world is that with food always available, we're pretty much always in growth mode. And that means that cleanup crew, it barely ever gets called into work. All right, so here are our two main characters in this story. On one side, you've got this thing called mTORC1. Let's just call it the builder. When you eat food, mTORC1 fires up and tells your body, hey, let's grow, let's store stuff. But look at that last point. When the builder is active, autophagy is switched off. Then, on the other side, we've got its polar opposite, AMPK, the recycler. This guy wakes up when there's an energy deficit, when you're fasting, and it slams the autophagy switch to on. They're like two ends of a seesaw.
So here's how fasting actually flips that switch. It's a really simple, beautiful chain reaction. Step 1, you stop eating. Right away, your insulin levels drop. Step 2, mTORC1, our builder, senses that lack of food and just goes to sleep. It turns off. And that's the cue for step 3. AMPK, the recycler, wakes up. It senses the low energy and gets activated. And what happens next? Step 4, boom! AMPK gives the green light to the whole autophagy system, and your internal cleanup crew finally gets to work. See? It's this perfect logical cascade.
Okay, so we've got the how down, but the next really, really important question is, when does this all happen? And this, folks, is where so much of the confusion online comes from. Because you absolutely have to understand this one thing. You are not a giant mouse. Just look at this comparison. For a mouse, with its crazy fast metabolism, a 24-hour fast is a massive deal. It's like a life-or-death survival situation. They lose a ton of body mass, it's incredibly stressful. But for us humans, a 24-hour fast is, well, it's a thing, but it's not a catastrophe. Our liver has enough fuel stored up to last a day, maybe even longer. So what's the bottom line here? Our on-ramp to deep autophagy is way, way slower. You just can't take mouse data and apply it directly to people. So, with that in mind, let's look at a much more realistic timeline for humans. Think of it in stages. Up to about 18 hours, you're just dipping your toes in the water. Insulin is low, the process is getting signaled. Then, between 18 and 24 hours, things get more serious. Your liver's glycogen stores start running out, and that recycler, AMK, really starts ramping up. But the sweet spot, the peak activation, really kicks in between 24 and 48 hours. That's when you start making ketones, which is a huge signal for autophagy. And if you go past 48 hours, well, now you're in the deep cleaning zone. We're talking sustained, high-level clearance of old junk. Every window has a purpose.
Okay, so now that we have this timeline, we can get practical. We can actually pick a fasting style that makes sense for what we're trying to achieve. Because believe me, not all fasts are the same, and they definitely don't all give you the same results. This chart breaks down the big three really nicely. So on one end of the spectrum, you have your daily time-restricted eating. Think of the popular 16-8 method. This is great for a low-level, daily maintenance dose of autophagy. It helps keep your metabolic rhythm in check. Then, on the complete opposite end, you've got prolonged water fasting. This is the heavy hitter. We're talking maximal, high-intensity cleanup. That's why it's being looked at for really serious things like stem cell regeneration. And sitting somewhere in the middle are things like the fasting-mimicking diet. The goal there is to get a lot of those high-intensity benefits over a few days, but with maybe a bit less of the risk. The point is, you have to match the tool to the job you want to do.
All right, it's really easy to hear all this and get super excited. I get it. But we have to pump the brakes for a second and be responsible here. Fasting is an incredibly powerful tool. And with great power, well, you know the rest. We have to balance the amazing promise with a very clear-eyed look at the risks.
And don't get me wrong, the potential is absolutely mind-blowing. When you look at neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, autophagy could be a game changer for clearing out those toxic proteins. In cancer research, it's being studied as a way to make treatments more effective. And for metabolic health, improving insulin sensitivity, maybe even helping the pancreas heal itself, it's huge. The possibilities are just enormous.
But here's the concept you absolutely have to grasp. Fasting is a stress on your body, but it's a special kind of stress called hormesis. Think of it like exercise. Lifting weights is a stress, right? But the right amount makes your muscles stronger. Too much, and you get injured. Fasting is exactly the same. The dose, well, the dose makes all the difference. It's what separates the medicine from the poison. And these risks are no joke. We're talking about the potential for hormonal disruption. This is especially important for women of reproductive age to consider. It can mess with your thyroid function. It can trigger painful gout flare-ups. It can even lead to gallstones. And the big one, the most serious risk you need to know about with longer fasts, is called refeeding syndrome. Okay, let's walk through this carefully because this is the single most dangerous part of long-term fasting if you don't know what you're doing. So after several days of fasting, say more than 5, your body's internal stores of critical minerals get really low. Now here's the dangerous part. When you suddenly reintroduce food, especially carbs, you get this huge insulin spike. That insulin's job is to push nutrients into your cells, but it also shoves the last bits of those minerals, phosphate, potassium, magnesium, out of your bloodstream and into the cells all at once. And that sudden, dramatic drop in your blood levels can be catastrophic. It can literally lead to cardiac arrest. This is exactly why refeeding after a long fast has to be done slowly, carefully, and frankly, with medical guidance. So, after all that, it really comes down to this one big question, a question you have to ask yourself. We know for a fact that the cellular cleanup process is absolutely essential for our health, and we know that fasting is one of the most powerful ways to turn it on. But the art and science of it all is figuring out what is the right amount of that stress for you.